back in the capital of Romania, Bucharest, to talk about an abandoned building in the heart of the city that was the center of numerous Cold War spy stories, including the infamous spy shoe. Welcome to Spy Spots. In Spy Spots, episode 18, we cover the headquarters of Romania Securitate, the building of the former Central Committee of the Communist Party, along with a Revolution Square and the Memorial of Rebirth, which are there as a reminder of the end of communism in Romania. Just a couple of blocks east of them, we find this abandoned building. Which was a palace of Maurice Bank, a famous Romanian banker and co-founder of the Marmorosch Bank. Specifically, it was built in 1891, designed by the famous Swiss architect Louis Pierre Blanc, who was also the man behind several impressive buildings in Romania, including the headquarters of the University of Iași, Victor Babeș Institute, the Palace of the Faculty of Medicine, and many others. For this specific one, he also received support from his associate, Luigi Scolari. In 1938, the palace was purchased by Eduard Mirto, a Romanian lawyer and politician who served as parliamentarian and minister in several PNT, that is, the National Peasant Party, governments. It was Mirto who was close to the US government and managed to get the US diplomatic mission to move there in 1939, right at the early days of the Second World War. The palace has an L-shaped building. (2,500 square meters). Large gardens with a central fountain, and a total of 50 rooms. Initially operating as a US legation in Bucharest, and eventually, on June 1st, 1964, getting raised to the embassy status, with the first US ambassador to serve there being William A. Crawford. As you can see, it was an impressive building, literally at the heart of the city, walking distance from all key Romanian government centers. Worth noting that during filming this drone footage, an undercover Romanian officer kindly asked us to not enter and pointed us to several websites that had relatively recent photos from the inside of this former US Embassy building. This is where all the photos that you see from the inside are coming from. As all our viewers should know by now, every single diplomatic mission is also hiding some spies among its personnel, operating under so-called diplomatic cover. And of course, this applied to this US Embassy too. Throughout the Cold War, this building was the home of countless CIA espionage cases in Romania, but there is one that is really well known as it involved a movie-like spy gadget, this spy shoe. As the International Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. describes it, shoe heel transmitter, Romanian Secret Service, 1960s. Transmitter, microphone and batteries were embedded in the heel of the target shoe, a walking radio station transmitting all conversations. The Romanian Securitate had used it in the early days of that US Embassy to spy on an American diplomat serving there. The full story of that was published by Luciano Mangiafico in this 2014 journal from the American Foreign Service Association. Let's read it. Well before 1977, when I was assigned to Bucharest to head the embassy's consular section, I was already well aware that Securitate, the state security service, kept close tabs on all foreigners, both at work and at home. They also used a medical clinic across the street from the embassy to observe our visitors and intercept communications. This is likely referring to this building right across the street of the US Embassy, which is still a medical center even to this day. When I arrived, our ambassador was Harry G. Barnes Jr., a Foreign Service legend who was famous for having had a shoe bagged by Romanian intelligence while he was Deputy Chief of Mission in Bucharest years before. The Bureau of Diplomatic Security subsequently exhibited the shoe during Washington security briefings to illustrate the lengths to which hostile powers would go to obtain intelligence. As Barnes later recounted, Dick Davis, his ambassador at the time, wrote back to the state, "Don't you think you ought to reimburse Harry for the price of new shoes?" The department's response was, "We will replace the one shoe." He finally persuaded them to pay for a pair. And the same publication also reveals another spy story from the communist era of Romania. I also played postman for Constantin Răuță, a Romanian intelligence officer who had defected to the United States while on an advance trip for the 1974 visit of President Ceausescu to Washington, D.C. Răuță had left behind his young wife and child, so I regularly delivered mail from him to them and collected letters she wanted sent to him. She was finally allowed to leave Romania late in 1979, nearly 6 years after her husband had defected. Loren Vespoli gives another small piece of the puzzle, saying that America and Romania were enemies during World War II and continued to spy on each other for years. For instance, when one American diplomat stationed in Romania picked up a pair of shoes from his cobbler, there was a special present from the Romanian Secret Service hidden inside the heel, a tiny microphone. And Alisa Danigelis of Discovery and the then International Spy Museum's senior historian, Thomas Bogart, who is now working at the US Army Center of Military History, said, "Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Western diplomats in Eastern Europe avoided buying suits there, preferring to mail-order clothing and shoes from the West. In Romania, the Secret Service used this to their advantage, working with a postal service to install a transmitter in shoe heels." Bogart says that the recording device was discovered during a routine room sweep that revealed a signal, but the signal disappeared when all the diplomats left the room. With 70 years of espionage activities taking place in this building, those two spy stories are just a tiny glimpse into the clandestine and covert activities that took place behind those walls. Eventually, in 2011, the US Embassy in Romania moved to a much larger, modern, newly built, remote and secure facility, which is very close to the airport and almost half an hour drive from the city center. And what happened to this historical building that we've seen in today's episode? On July 4th, 2018, it was put up for sale by the Artmark Historical Estate with a starting price of €5.5 million. However, even 3 years later, it still wasn't sold. In 2020, Constantin Prisecaru, an official from the Artmark Historical Estate, said, "There is an owner, obviously. His name cannot be made public. We are violating the data privacy. We cannot afford to announce him if he does not want to." Diana Perdum, a representative of the company, stated, "There were several auctions, but the building wasn't sold. There is no question of it being rented. We are only discussing the sale." Constantin Prisecaru details, "There is no buyer at the moment. The only thing I can tell you is that at the moment the building costs €4.5 million. Initially the starting price was €5.5 million. There is no clear buyer, but there are discussions with interested people. Whoever wants to buy it can also do it at the price of 4.5 million euros. Finally, in early 2025, we learned from the local press that, for several years, the Maurice Bank Palace in the center of Bucharest has finally found its owner, the state. More precisely, it is the State Secretariat for Religious Affairs, the institution that distributed over 110 million euros to churches in 2024 and which needed a new building because the activity has diversified and the complexity of managing the relationship between the state and religious communities has also required an increasing number of employees. And also says, the document also reveals the amount paid for the purchase of this palace, where the US Embassy operated until 2011, 20,198,000 lei, or over 4 million euro. Which is great to hear, because it means that this unique spy spot and beautiful historical site will not face a slow decay and death, but will soon have a new life as a Romanian government facility. That said, we highly recommend you visiting that site, and please share with us any other interesting spy stories that took place behind its walls in those 70 years of operation as the US Embassy in Romania. Such events take place on embassies of all countries all around the world today too, but it will take years before we get to hear them, and it's another reason why we say that nothing is as it seems.